Recovery Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abassi. I'm a grateful, recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor. And today I wanted to talk about restraint. And that came from my meeting this morning where we were reading step 10, and it references restraint of pen and tongue. And I thought, that's a really good topic. Um, because I think when I first got sober, the idea of restraint of pen and tongue was really stopping myself from reacting when I was pissed off. I mean, that's what was the overriding thing I needed to figure out how to manage, I thought. But over time, as I've remained sober, the idea of restraint of pen and tongue has been, it was just the gateway to understanding that not everything, not every conversation revolves around what Rachel has to say. Not every thing that's going on, every situation revolves around what Rachel thinks about it. So what I've learned in recovery is to pause an extra moment before I'm going to say something to make sure, does it need to be said? Does it need to be said now? I can't remember what the third one is. I think there's three sentences, three sentences that are related to that. But is what I'm about to say going to add value to the conversation? Or am I simply talking because there's free airtime? Or am I stealing away someone else's opportunity to speak because I feel like I haven't had a turn yet? You know what I mean? And so that's really what I wanted to talk about, and how that initial introduction to restraint of pen and tongue really over the course of the past 9 years, and some people who know me may disagree, I doubt it, but it has helped me to build character that I'm proud of. And that has required a lot of humility and a lot of gratitude. I've given the example a couple times of sitting at, I had tea, I had my mother and my mother-in-law, my new mother-in-law, over for tea. They hadn't met yet after 18 years of my husband and I dating and then getting married. They hadn't met. I know it's crazy, but they were only an hour away from each other, but there was just never an opportunity, I guess. We just didn't make it happen, right? Stop making excuses, Rachel. So I had a tea and they both came. And so we were sitting at the table and I was at the head of the table because it's easier on my eyes to be able to be at the head of the table. So, and then they were sitting across from each other and they were talking, conversation. It was going really well. I'm like, this is really nice. That's what I was thinking to myself. This is great. This is really nice. And then I started thinking about what I needed to say. I started thinking, well, I could say this. And then one of them would say something. And then I'm like, okay, well, now I can say this. And then the other one would say something. And I finally realized you don't have to say anything. The reason why this is so beautiful is because you're not participating, that you're allowing these women who grew up in completely different worlds come together because my husband and they're getting to know each other. They both already know you, Rachel. So that awareness, that recognizing that not every thought needs to be spoken. And the same applies to text. Not every thought needs to be text. And I think that I say a lot of times people get brave behind the computer, people get brave behind their iPhones. And I think that there's a tendency to to not pause. Um, but it actually, and it feels like, yeah, I'm miss so and so because I can stand up for myself or whatever. But it actually takes more courage to pause than it does to react to our impulses. So I'm learning to shut my mouth while I'm thinking. Um, this in early recovery served the purpose of not saying something that you'll regret later. It's not saying something that's going to make me have to do a step 9 and go um, make amends. But it's shown me that there is like an acceptance that is happening in silence, that being quiet is really an act of service. And today, this morning, going through step 10, this is the part that I focused on. And it was really a nice reset reminder that I don't have to always engage unnecessarily. Like, I, I, I don't know the last time that I said something that I regret, but I think it's because I'm just not in a lot of social situations because I feel like I'm definitely someone who reacts when I'm out and like at work. Oh, I was a reactor. I was definitely a reactor, but my boss used to try to get me to wait 24 hours before responding to things. And excuse me, it used to drive me crazy, really. Um, when I send an email to somebody, and I never get a response the same day, that I always have to wait until the next day to get a response. That's annoying. And it makes me feel like that person does not know how to manage their time, does not know how to coordinate their own email box. But there are times I think that 24 hours, waiting 24 hours, or at least 12 hours, like waiting till morning, it gives an opening for humility to seep in ever so slightly. My boss would always point out to me how we would actually sit down in my one on one and he would read back to me an email that I had sent that I copied him in. And I'm like, so he reads it back to me and he's like, how do you think that might be interpreted? And I was like, well, when you say it like that, and he's like, exactly. When people are receiving the written word, it's going to be in their own voice and it's going to be in the context of their own story, the story that they're spinning in their head. Like, not everyone's recognizing my perspective when they read my words. And the same thing happens for speaking, that I have countlessly offended people, and it's never been my intention. Like, I wish they could see inside me to know that I did not intend to make somebody feel a certain way, a negative way. And I actually had a coworker who's now one of my best friends, and she would actually stand up for me. That there had been a time or two that somebody had gone to her and said that I had pissed them off. And she said, if you know Rachel, you know that that was not her intended um, end result. And so I think it's because I don't know. I have a tendency to want to come across a certain way, to want to come across strong and independent. And I choose words in order to come across that way. Um, but I think with time, I've been able to restrain and recognize the words that you choose are not for the purpose of making you look a certain way. It is authentic. That authenticity is what I should be shooting for, not to look a certain way. And I think that now that I don't have my career anymore, I can see that a little clearer. I feel like, I think we all feel like we're authentic in the moment. And we can look back and see if we really spend some time looking back and remembering how a conversation went. We can pair up what was coming out of our mouth and what we were thinking at the same time that that came out of our mouth, and that self-awareness starts to become habit, and along with the pause, then we can start becoming um becoming more, I don't know, well, that self-awareness helps us be more aware. That doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? Like if I'm if I'm in a conversation with somebody and I'm hearing what they say and it's making me angry, then if I pause, it's allowing time for humility to come in, to be like, you're not the boss, you're not always right. Like, your perspective is not always the right one, nor does your perspective always have to be voiced. What am I doing? Am I making somebody else feel smaller so that I can feel bigger? You know, I'm certainly guilty of that. I really am, and I know it's progress, not perfection. So I'm sure I still do it, but it's not intentional. It's not like I'm entering into a conversation and I'm like, I'm gonna crush this person. I'm gonna totally crush them and make them feel like shit. Like that's not what I intend to do. But sometimes my ego takes over my mouth, and if I don't pause before the words start falling out, then I can offend people or piss them off or make them feel bad. So taking that pause allows humility to come in. It also allows gratitude to come in. And I feel like gratitude, man, if I had practiced gratitude the first 42 years of my life, might have grown a little faster. But it wasn't until got sober that I was able to see the gifts that I have. I mean, I knew that I had a great family. I knew that, I'm lucky to have been able to go to college, and like, I know that stuff. But there's gratitude in everything. There's gratitude in every moment. And that's what I didn't see. Um, so when I can let gratitude interrupt some of that self righteousness, it can soften my reactions to my responses, because if I'm pausing, then I'm not reacting anymore, I'm responding. And there's a big difference to me, and I like to differentiate the two. Um, so practicing gratitude just for a second. Like if somebody makes you angry and you just pause, intentionally think of something that you're grateful for. Even if you have to walk away, some people say, well, I need to count to 10 or I need to walk away. Just stay here. I'm going to take a walk for a second. Think about something that you have to be grateful for. And it can be the smallest thing. It can be the fact that the person is not screaming at you as you walk away to practice gratitude, that they understand. Sure, take a minute if you need it. So gratitude is definitely an anchor. And then finally, tolerance is a huge character building skill that I don't know. I'm not going to pretend like I've got it. I'm not, because up until the very end of my career, I was intolerant of others' behavior. And what I heard this morning was really cool. Somebody said that her sponsor told her, practicing the principles in all of our affairs is not contingent on other people's behavior. I think that's how she worded it. And I'm like, that's really good. Because accepting other people's behavior, um, and not allowing that to dictate my own behavior, disconnecting them. That person can be angry. I don't have to be. I just don't have to be. And that I've learned that I can do, but it's hard, right? And having a tolerance is like a protective barrier against emotional disturbance. So viewing these difficult interactions as opportunity to grow in patience and grow in empathy. Um, I have so many memory bubbles just popping. Too bad you can't see it on the video, but I have so many memory bubbles just popping over my head about all the situations that I was in my career that I was intolerant. I really was. If somebody wasn't doing something the way I think they should, I was completely intolerant. And I get pissed off. And most of the time, I wouldn't say anything to the person, but I would certainly go talk to my boss, who was my friend, and you got to be careful with that. And talk to somebody else that will help me like calm down. But I needed to recognize my own self-righteousness. And there's a danger in believing that my way is the right way. And I still have that. And man, it's hard. It's hard. My husband is right most of the time. I'm gonna say that. It's true. He's right most of the time. He's not right all of the time, but he's right most of the time. And I have always felt over these 51 years that I was right all the time. And it has been a humbling experience to allow him to be a husband. And because my self-righteousness feeds the urge to react to something that he said, even if it's like, that shouldn't go in the dishwasher, it'll oxidize. um, and I will immediately, my reaction is to question it. And I've been practicing keeping my mouth shut. And after practicing keeping my mouth shut, I'm practicing keeping my mouth shut without making a bitch face, you know? Um, I'm trying to choose character building over ego. And what makes me feel bad, and I've shared this before, is when I'm talking to him and he says something like, that doesn't go in the dishwasher. He knows that I've got a freaking ego, and he won't say that to me, but he has learned how to adjust the way that he introduces something, an idea to me that I may not agree with. He'll soften it up in the beginning with like, now I know this might not be something that you're used to, but that actually doesn't go into the dishwasher. And that makes me feel like this big. And because I'm making him have to adjust the way that he deals with me so that I don't get pissed off, which ends up making him pissed off. You know, I don't know how he feels because I'm not him, but when I react in such a way that I'm like, I don't know, resisting. It's like I'm resisting what he is recommending that I do because I'm always right. I know the right way to do it. Um, so what I have been trying to do is live in that pause, like always come back to the pause as the first tool in the toolbox. Because if I go back to the pause, excuse me, I have time to sift through my toolbox and figure out what do I need to do. Um, And at the end of the day, if I don't do it right, then I've got the step 10 reflection to be able to look back at my day, review my words and my actions and my motives every day. And actually last night, I'm pretty proud of myself. Last night I was falling asleep, and as you know, we've been dealing with moving, putting our house on the market. So our house is on the market today. And my mind keeps going blank. I'm sorry. That's stress. So I keep like staying up, waking up because I keep thinking, what if we don't meet the deadline for the contingency and all of these things? And it's freaking me out. And um, I have to tell myself, think positive. Of course you are. You have an amazing house. Somebody's going to love it. Well, last night I was like, you know what I should be thinking of? Step 10. I should be doing an inventory right now. I should be looking at where have I been resentful, afraid, and all of those things. And so that's what I did. That's what I fell asleep to. I fell asleep looking back at my behavior and my interactions throughout the day and making sure that I'm practicing the principles of recovery, regardless of other people's behavior. And again, I don't interact with a lot of people anymore, but when I do, I want to be good at it. I want to live better. I want to behave better. I heard this morning again, and I hear this a lot. When I am disturbed, there's something wrong with me. And it's not fair for me to invite other people into my disturbance unless I'm seeking help, not reacting and snapping and that kind of stuff. I want to do things my way all the time. I want to fix things on my own. And that includes my disturbances. I want to fix them by myself. And most likely, the thinking that caused the problem is not going to solve the problem. and I need to invite somebody else in, seek help, and talk to somebody. That's the only way that I see improving a disturbance, improving a situation, is if I invite somebody else in. I need some extra help. And that's nothing, that's courage to invite somebody in and say, look, I'm bothered by X, Y, and Z, and the same thinking that caused the problem can't fix the problem. So I need your help. Um, and over time, this building this quiet strength becomes a habit. It does. And again, it's progress, but I'll take it, man. It's so much better than the way I used to live when I was drinking. Oh my gosh. I can't even tell you. I was a victim of my thinker. I was an absolute victim of what was going on between my ears. And there was another person in there. There was drunk Rachel was in there, and she was a dictator, and she was dictating my every move, and I had no say over whether I pause or not. I had no say over whether I reached out for help or not, because it was alcoholism, which was my dictator. And now that I've been able to take away that drug, um, I have more control over whatever's within my fingertips. I can control. And I get to practice restraint and humility and gratitude and tolerance every day. And I'm hoping that that shapes my character in a positive way. I think that the pause is a gift to me so that I can not spin things up in my head. And my pause is a gift to others too, because I'm not inviting them into my disturbance. So I think that true strength, true courage is in choosing when not to speak, choosing when not to react, and choosing when to let things be quiet rather than expressing my self-righteous pride. You know what I mean? So that's what I have today. Thanks so much for listening. And if you know somebody who needs to move to Virginia, right outside of DC, in a beautiful townhome, ping me. Send me an email to rachel@recoverydailypodcast.com, because I have the townhouse for you. I'll talk to you tomorrow.